Welcome to Top of the Key. I'm your host, Nikki Fargas. As we head into the heart of the season, the playoff picture is starting to take shape, and some teams are making serious noise. Today, to help me break down the contenders, the sleepers, and the squads built to peak at just the right time is Carolyn Peck and Krista Blanc. Welcome, ladies.
Good to be here, Nikki.
Good to be here.
Well, who's got the chemistry, the coaching, and the clutch factor to make a deep postseason run? Let's get into it right now, and let's start with the Las Vegas Aces.
Well, there's no doubt the Aces have the ability. I know there's a lot of question marks. Fans might not be feeling super confident right now. It's been a little bit of a bumpy ride to start things off, but this is a team that has the core group back, and it all comes down to the core group. But there's a lot of new pieces, and I think a lot of people aren't understanding how many new pieces there really are. Youth, you've got Jewel Lloyd. Yeah, she's a superstar, all-star player, but she's learning a lot of new things about this team and trying to figure out what her role is going to be. So it's going to all kind of fall down on this core group that's got to bring it together.
I think the Aces, everybody needs to just be patient because you're not going to win a championship in May and June. This is the time that you can get better, and I think when you get closer to the end of August, September, they're going to be playing the way Becky wants them to.
Well, and this team also has players who've won 2 championships. So with that experience and with the depth that they've been able to, or that we've been able to create from the bench, I think that's going to also help them have that run, that long run, because as we know, the bench is going to be key down the stretch, and playing them early also allows them to get that experience. But the team that, of course, we need to talk about as a contender that we cannot overlook is the New York Liberty, obviously coming off of a championship.
Well, I think being reigning champions, New York has not had any kind of let up.
Yeah.
They have come out of the gate, and the most surprising thing for me is the biggest change that they made was at the point guard spot.
Yeah.
And I think Natasha Cloud was the perfect fit because she doesn't come in and try to do too much. Her goal is to make everybody better. And when you look at New York, they have length, they have talent, they have athleticism, and they have depth. Because Sandy Brandello is able to go 10, 11 deep and never miss a step. And I think a big part of that is now in her sophomore season, Leonie Fiebig. At 6'4", she's shooting over 50% from the three-point line. That really helps out Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones.
Well, and the loss of Kayla Thornton, she was such a big piece, and so you thought, okay, without Vandersloot running the point, or who's gonna handle the ball? Well, then they fill it with Natasha Cloud. She's not skipped a beat. She's come right in and she's learned their system. Those are question marks early when there's a lot of change. Will these teams already have chemistry? They're a scary team because they've already kind of got that chemistry going, and like you said, Fiebig being healthy. For me and them, it's all about Jonquel Jones. When Jonquel Jones puts her mind to it and says, I want to play, they are really tough to beat.
And I had a big question mark not having Benijah Laney because she was that dog, that toughness mentality. Well, not having Benijah, that's what Natasha Cloud brings to the New York Liberty.
And you want that at the point position because it sets the tone. Not only is she this facilitator on the offensive side of the basketball, but defensively, she will get after you. So she's setting the tone on the defensive side of the basketball as well. Minnesota, a team that's rich in playoff history, who was in the championship game last year, literally 40 minutes away from winning a championship. We've got to talk about how they're going to be able to make that same type of run this season.
Well, I think that Nafisa Collier is making a strong campaign for MVP, and all of the pieces around her are really fallen into place, and Courtney Williams at the top of her game. And when you look at how Minnesota has started the season, and they did so without a few games not having Kayla McBride, they were still able to hold it down. Now they're going to be playing without Jessica Shepard because she's gone over to Eurobasket. She's a big part of that inside because she's one of these post players that can pass so well and rotate with Alana Smith. So, and they've got a tough stretch. They got to play Indiana. They got to play Atlanta, who's a good team as well. So this is going to be a challenging stretch for Minnesota.
I think schedule is such a big key about who's doing what they're doing right now, and you can't determine what your schedule is going to give you early on, depending on who you face. But they've gotten off and they're building confidence, and that's where you look at other teams and say, okay, who's going to come on later on? But Minnesota, they have these veteran players; they'll be able to handle it. I think Bridget Carlton, Heidemann, those are just such key veteran players coming in for them too.
We talked about New York and Minnesota. The two things those two teams are playing well. What they're doing offensively, they're moving the ball. They don't care who gets the shine. And then their chemistry defensively has made them really tough starting out early this season.
Of course, the other teams that you may look at and you look at how they've rebuilt and how they've structured their roster this year, we've got to talk about Atlanta. Atlanta is a team that's kind of going to be that dark horse, if you will, coming into this to this season, and they're building momentum, and they're doing it by playing through and not just with a Brittany Griner. You've got size, you've got quickness with Gray, and you've got a great player in Ryan Howard.
Yeah, and I think they're a team that they've had those two key players who are two of my favorite players. They just needed some others to go with, and they got two incredible interior players, high-low post. Griner can step out and shoot the three if you need her to. They are utilizing them perfectly with those others.
Carl Semesco, coming from Florida Gulf Coach, you would think this is just going to be a team that shoots a lot of threes. That's not the case. Talked about defense with New York and Minnesota. Atlanta is bringing the defense as well. You mentioned Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones. Well, they have built a fence in the paint, and it is really hard to score in the paint against Atlanta's defense. And I think that you talked about Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, and Jordan Canada.
Yeah.
So you got tough defense. They are out of the chute running in transition.
Well, another team that is forming their own identity, some changes in the roster, but their blend of seasoned players and emerging stars, we got to talk about Seattle.
Well, Seattle, and now that they have the experience from last year of Skylar Diggins playing with Neko Gumake and Ezzy Magbagor, that's a great core. Then you add the defensive monster, I think, in Gabby Williams and what she's been able to do. Seattle's another team, tough defensively. They can get downhill. They can attack you offensively. And this is a team that's got a really good, I think, perimeter threat that makes it very hard for them to be defended.
They do. They're quick. They push pace. They've got length, but their length can run as well. I think they're a tough matchup in a lot of spots. Really difficult. They picked up Alicia Clark. I think we remember her.
Yes.
Former Aces player. But they're one of those teams also where you say, well, most of their group's back from a season ago. Why haven't they maybe gotten off to a better start than they have? But I also think they have added some new pieces as well. It's just going to take them a little time. But boy, do they have the options. They've got some possibilities for sure.
A very young and talented Indiana Fever team. This team is quietly improving and could be a surprise factor in the playoff run.
Well, they have started off the season and have to play without Caitlin Clark, and they've learned to adjust. But I think that having Kelsey Mitchell really playing through her, I like that Lexi Hall has gotten more minutes because that's a defensive presence for them as well. And they're a team that likes to get out and transition. The addition of Natasha Howard, I think that really helps Aaliyah Boston not have to be that rim runner every time down the floor.
Yeah, she can distract. You better know where Howard is or she's going to score on you. So it helps Leah Boston. I think you add DeWanna Bonner, you bring a little more experience to a very young team. They've had so many first-round picks and young picks. They've been beat up a little bit. You know, they picked up Sophie Cunningham. She was out for a bit as well. They've had some key injuries, and yet they've still got their heads above water. They can be a scary team as the season goes along.
And you know who's getting minutes for Indiana that's really helping them? Is Sydney Colson.
Yeah.
I think her playing that point position, and talk about that player. Remember her in the championship when the second championship for the Aces, she had to come in and play in place of Chelsea Gray. I think she demonstrated then what she's capable of, and she's doing that in Indiana.
Well, Indiana went from just having one WNBA champion to now having Bonner, who's got two championships, Colson has 2 championships, and Howard has 3 championships. So they have veterans who have been there and who knows exactly, and they know exactly what it takes to win a championship. I think that's going to be key for Indiana moving forward. Phoenix are back in the playoff mix. You saw the changes that they made with a mix of veteran leadership and this rising talent.
Well, when you add Alyssa Thomas, I mean, that puts you in the category to be in the playoffs right away. And I think that Nate Tibbetts, he really found his way in that first year and getting experience and knowing what he had to guard in the WNBA. They're one of the top defensive teams in the league right now as well. He mixes up the defenses. He'll play some man. He'll throw in some zone, so you never can get in a rhythm against Phoenix, and that makes them dangerous.
And it's so impressive because talk about young teams. They have a team of 6 rookies and multiple rookies getting starts in this league. They're averaging close to double figures, a couple of them as well. So they've had to do it with a lot of new pieces and also very young pieces that don't have a lot of WNBA experience. But everybody knows even if the offense isn't going, you can always bring the defense. Well, they're bringing the defense. They have really done a nice job defensively.
And these are rookies that came in undrafted.
Right.
That's been really impressive for Phoenix.
You know, this Mercury team it ranks 3rd in fewest points allowed per game. And it starts on the defensive end for them, only behind New York and Minnesota. So that tells you where they put their emphasis on as far as how good they are going to be on the defensive side of the basketball. The Washington Mystics, they're quietly positioning themselves as a playoff threat this season.
And I think that they are built on 2 freshmen, on the back of 2 freshmen in that starting lineup with Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen. And Kiki reminds me, and I say this every time I get an opportunity, she reminds me of Asia Wilson. And she's got that fierceness about her. She runs the floor, high energy, and when you have the impact of that, and no fear. Sonia Citron, she can light it up from outside. She's another one of these young players that gets downhill and attacks. Brittany Sykes is playing extremely well, and she's put into that role of being the lead dog, the leader of the team, and I think that's been a position she's waited for. She's really had gone through some injuries, had time to really mentally get to where she needs to be, and I think that makes Washington dangerous.
And they haven't been 100% healthy either. They didn't have Aaliyah Edwards. Aaliyah Edwards had an incredible season last year coming in to the league, and I was so excited to see her and ready to get her back out there because she's a difference maker for them also.
I mean, Carolyn, you mentioned earlier the teams that are very efficient offensively are the ones that are moving and sharing the basketball. And this Washington Mystics team is right at 20 assists a contest. So that tells you that they're playing a very unselfish style of basketball. I got one question for you guys. Give me your spoiler alert for the playoffs.
That's
CP.
It's the expansion team, Golden State. I think that Natalie Nakasi, what she did in assembling her roster was fit a system that she wanted to play. And these are all players that have never been the lead dog on their teams, and they are playing with something to prove. So they play hungry, and they're selfless and relentless. This team, you come in and have an off day against Golden State, they're going to keep accumulating those wins. And I think Golden State could be right there, that 8, 7, 8, 9 position to be right in the hunt.
I would not be surprised. I'm with you on that. They have a lot of talent. I think they're going to start really gelling and putting it together. They've already started to show that. But don't be surprised either if the LA Sparks, who made a lot of changes, if they can stay healthy, if they get Cameron Brink back at just the right time, they could be a big problem and they could sneak in.
I love you guys breaking down each one of these teams. I feel like we can continue to talk about other teams too in this league because that's just how strong and the parity that's within this league. So that's it for this edition of Top of the Key. The road to the playoffs, it's never easy, but the teams that can lock in and stay healthy and trust their identity are the ones we'll be talking about in September. I'm Nikki Fargas. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time as we keep our eye on the court and the chase for the championship.